Hello and welcome to another edition of Football Express. I'm Stephen Looney and joining me in the studio today are Paul Leeman, Tim McCann and Mark McIntosh. As ever, you're all very welcome. Quick recap on last weekend's results in the Sports Direct Premiership. Friday, November 22nd, it was Glentoran 1, Linfield 0. Saturday, November 23rd, Carrick Rangers 0, Dungannon Swifts 1. Cliftonville 4, Loughgall 0. Portadown 1, Glenavon 0 in the Mid-Ulster derby. And on last Sunday, up at the showgrounds, Coleraine 1, Crusaders 2. The third time Crusaders have beaten the Bandsiders 2-1. Looking ahead to this weekend, Saturday, November 30th, Ballymena United against Carrick Rangers, Crusaders against Dungannon Swifts, Glenavon versus Coleraine, Linfield against Portadown, Loughgall versus Glentoran, and on Sunday, December 1st, it's Larne against Cliftonville at Inver Park. Now, Paul, going to bring you in first of all here. The big news since we were last on, Tiernan Lynch has left Larne after 7.5 years of unprecedented success, dizzy heights, 2 league titles and first Irish League team to break into the group stages of European football. Nathan Rooney is the new man. I'm just going to get straight into it. Paul, I have it down here. Why now, and what does the future hold for Larne?
Why now? Probably, Tiernan sees the. I know we know he's been, sought after before by St Johnstone, but the Derry City project probably is more appealing to him. It's still in Northern Ireland. It probably doesn't affect his everyday life as much, his family life as much. His brother's able to go with him, Seamus, who's a big part of the team there. So the project at Derry, they've a big budget. They're doing good things at Derry, rebuilding the stadium. So to me, the project has appealed to Tiernan a lot more than, say, the St Johnstone one. You could probably argue, why would he leave Larne when they've still an opportunity of winning trophies. They're still in the Conference League. They're on a great road in terms of success and what he's achieved with them. But perhaps he's thinking the Derry job might not ever come up again for him. And for all those things that I've mentioned there before, all those boxes that are ticked, let's just say, maybe Tiernan thinks it's the right time to go.
Thanks, Paul. Tim, you know the boys and you worked at Larne. Just something, your old gaffer, Roy Coyle, I've talked to him a lot of times, and he's very philosophical. He says sometimes you can just be somewhere too long. I don't know if that's the case here. Quick reflection, let's look at what Tiernan did. He and Kenny Bruce now, Kenny looking after the finances, Tiernan and his brother Seamus looking after the football. They have built something really, really magical over at Inver Park.
Yeah, I came on board with him, I think it was early 2000, or the season 2017, and 6 points adrift in the championship at the bottom of the league, and training up in Jordanstown on a rugby pitch. Obviously things weren't going well, and you just gradually build it, but you could see from day one the blueprint of what they wanted to do. As I said, I was very fortunate to be there the 5 years and see them gradually build that up into a full-time outfit and the pitch and the stadium and all that. But I think there just comes a point in a time, obviously everybody doesn't know the ins and outs of what goes on in the background, but one of the things that Tiernan said on Radio Ulster at the weekend was basically that he just felt it was time for both parties to move on. So whatever that means, I just think that Tiernan won't stay anywhere that he feels there isn't maybe a future, or there maybe isn't going to be the same success. And again, as Paul said, the Derry job might not come up again. They've always liked the league down south. They've always went and watched games. They're very, very fond of it. They know it inside out. And I think this was the next challenge. And the one thing Paul said was the big factor in it was Seamus going with Tiernan, because Seamus wanted to stay here with his family, and that's what kind of maybe hindered the St Johnstone thing. So I think it's probably a perfect time all round for everyone to go and seek pastures new.
Thanks, Tim. Mark, bring you in. You work at the coalface, you know all the clubs, you know all the people. On the face of it, you might think, well, Tiernan and Seamus turned down an SPFL club and they've gone to Derry City. That's strange on the face of it, maybe, but if you look into it, maybe from Tiernan's perspective, you're going into St Johnstone who are, fighting near the bottom, and he doesn't maybe necessarily know the league as well as he does the Irish League and the League of Ireland. At Derry City, there's great foundations left there by Rory Higgins, who went close to winning the league and the cup. So, can you understand the move, and tell us about your thoughts about the timing of it, because bear in mind as well, I mean, Larne are still in Europe, 3 games left in the group stages, Olympia this week.
Yeah, I can understand it, because I think from the second he spoke to St Johnstone, it was clear that maybe his eye was on another job somewhere, maybe he thought it was the right time. I mean, what else could he really do at Larne? You know, he came in and he started from nothing. Now, obviously, the money from Kenny Bruce helped hugely, but, you know, they won the league for the first time. They backed that up by winning it again. As you say, they got to the league stage of the Conference League. There wasn't much more he probably could do. And if he was thinking that was the right time to go, Derry City's a great club. You know, St Johnstone are shambolic off the pitch. And I think that was a big thing. I think Tiernan needs a lot of things in place to be successful, or to help him be successful. Whereas Derry City, okay, they had a really poor end of the season, but had they won their last 3 games, they'd have won the double. You know, so he's got into a club, okay, they've lost a few players, but he's got into a club who are close to success. So I totally could understand the move. I understood the timing of it, simply, like I said, because he took the opportunity to speak to St Johnstone. So to me, it was always likely it was going to happen.
There wasn't really too much of a fight put up from Larne's side, because it all happened very, very quickly. The moment that Rory Higgins was gone, I think it all happened within 48 hours. So there wasn't, you know, Kenny maybe saying, no, we need to keep this. So there's obviously been a discussion there that if something comes up and we're going for it, we're moving, and Kenny has obviously allowed that. So again, as I said, Tiernan said both parties were happy to move on. So maybe, as I said, it maybe been agreed the next thing that comes up and I go for, and Kenny has agreed to it.
Thanks, Tim. I'm going to come to you in a minute, boys, about this, but I want to ask you, Mark, as well. Now, so Nathan Rooney, we know from Bruno's Magpies and Gibraltar, had great success with them. He's the new man. The king is dead, long live the king. What now for Nathan Rooney? And what about Larne now? And I'll tell you why I'm intrigued about this, because I remember when Tiernan was getting a lot of stick a few years ago when the fans were against him, and even we know that some board members maybe wanted to move against him. Kenny Bruce stood shoulder to shoulder with him, and I think the message was then that if Tiernan goes, I go, which wouldn't have been good for the club. The club has since taken on outside investment, 40%. So, Kenny Bruce, Nathan Rooney, Larne, what does the future hold? Look into your crystal ball, please, Mark.
It's going to be interesting. Look, it's a gamble. Obviously, Nathan Rooney doesn't know the Irish League, so that's always going to be a gamble. But did he know the league in Gibraltar massively when he first went there, and he had great success? Again, he's coming into a base of a club who have been successful. You know, they're in another final soon. They could win the County Antrim Shield for the 5th year in a row. It's a good job for him. You know, my understanding certainly was he was looking at Ireland and he fancied a job in Northern Ireland or the Republic of Ireland. But it is a gamble for Larne, there's no doubt about that. And in terms of off the pitch, you know, again, there's rumours in Irish League football all the time, and, you know, I've probably heard for the last year that, you know, Kenny Bruce could be thinking about an exit strategy, and, you know, it wasn't going to be overnight, you know. And then we saw, as you rightly said, the sort of outside investment. I think maybe that'll continue for a while, and maybe we might see Kenny sort of slip away gradually, but I don't think it's going to be an overnight thing.
Thanks, Mark. Just following off of what Mark says there, Tim, you know, I could probably understand if Kenny wanted to maybe move off the stage to a degree. You know, he's put his money where his mouth is. He and Tiernan, they've built up something brilliant, as I've said, for the whole town. And I probably think it was maybe always in his plans to reduce, you know, his stake, so it'll become like an interest more than taking up his whole focus. But Larne, from Irish League point of view, are Larne going to retain top spot? Are they going to still be the kingpins of the Irish League moving forward, as they have been for the last 2 years?
Yeah, again, you just don't know how players are going to respond. I mean, you have to remember all of these signings are Tiernan and Seamus's signings. New management comes in, what style will he have? You know, I heard his interview saying he's an aggressive coach. So it's going to be interesting to see how the players take to that. You always get a bounce, you know, from your new manager. There's always some kind of impact, but you just don't know how the players take, because they've been used to the same voices for the last 7 years. And again, that could be a good thing or it could be a bad thing. I think Larne have still got the quality. For me, they've still got a huge squad with a lot of talented players. And I would say that Nathan will be given the readies to go and probably spend again in January. I think they might offload a couple to bring a few more in, but I still think they'll be looking to strengthen and try and catch up. I know they've a lot of games in hand, and for me the points are always better on the board, and I think that's where he needs to watch out. I know he's got 3 Conference League games coming up, but for me the league's the bread and the butter, and I think they really need to start picking up points in the league as soon as possible.
Thanks, Tim. Paul, there's no doubt that qualifying for the group stages, the league phase as it's now called, has been disruptive for Larne. There's no doubt about that whatsoever. You know, we've seen them come back from Europe and lose games. You know, the players have said themselves it's a different style, they have to adapt. I did believe now that with Tiernan at the helm, that it was still within Larne's gift to get to January, make a couple of signings maybe, and go on a run to challenge for the league title. It remains to be seen whether Nathan Rooney can do that or not. Every signing is a gamble to some degree or another. How do you feel about it? If you were a Larne fan, Paul, how would you feel right now?
I think they'll be disappointed that Tiernan has gone. You know, he's done so much there. He's built up a great squad. They're a great style of play. You know, we always enjoyed watching them play, but this season has been difficult for them. You know, it's been completely new to them how they prepare, the extra travel, the bigger squad. You know, Tiernan's had to manage differently this year, and you know the players are probably in one game out for the next game, so they haven't really had that momentum that they would have had before in the league. They've had to chop and change, so it certainly has affected them. The European run, yes, as a supporter you want to be there. All Irish League teams would want to be there, but it has been disruptive to them, and I agree with him. The bread and butter is the Irish League, and I think they probably need to focus more on the league now. Although there's a lot of money at stake for getting points in the Conference League, you know, realistically, I would be playing with my strongest team in the league games now and rotating within the Conference League as it comes to an end and try and get those points on the board. But I think, you know, Nathan Rooney is coming in and he's going to inherit a great squad of players, a fantastic infrastructure, a club that's geared up for success. So it's a good job. I can see why he's came here, even though the weather's not as good as it is in Gibraltar. I can see why he's came to Larne, because there's a lot of positive things in place. I would say they'll have the finances again to strengthen again in January, and they'll still be one of the teams to beat. There's no doubt about that.
The one thing that will never change will be the demand that the repeat of what Kenny wants from a manager will be the exact same as what's happened with Tiernan. And that might have had a decision factor on basically what's happening, you know, because they have lost quite a lot of games in the league already this season, and they want that exact same opportunity again. So they want to build on getting through to the group stages. They want that to be a regular occurrence, and maybe just think, as Paul said, I think from now on, realistically, the Conference League is gone. You know what I mean? It realistically is gone, and concentrate in the league and try and get as many points as you can, because you're going to have to play a lot of catch-up, play a lot of games in a short space of time, probably come January, once the European adventure's over. And if they want to have the best opportunity to qualify in Europe, as most teams do, then it's through the Champions League phase, where even if you get knocked out of the Champions League, then you're dropping back into the Europa Conference, and that's the way forward.
You have to win the league, because then if you win the league, you get through one round in Europe and you're guaranteed the playoff. Yeah. That's the thing. Every Irish League club has to go for that now. Well,
that's the holy grail, I suppose. Paul, back to you now. Matters on the field of play with Larne. They're playing Cliftonville on Sunday. Big test, Nathan Rooney's first Irish League game. And I want to talk a wee bit about Cliftonville as well. Going well, up to second, 5 points behind the Blues. And Joe Gormley, top goal scorer, and it's fabulous. I remember talking to Skin a little earlier on in this season about, you know, they're talking about the players leaving Cliftonville. And I had just watched, you know, them playing Joe, and I was just, it's simple. Just give the ball to Joe in the box. I mean, he may not be able to plough the channels and, you know, do all the legwork. Give it to him in the box and he'll score, and he's doing it.
Yeah, he's had a fantastic season and another hat-trick last Saturday, but I think for Joe last season it was probably a bit frustrating for him. You know, he had other strikers ahead of him, Ronan Hale and Ashford and Wilson, who moved on, so his appearances were few and far between last season, whereas this season, you know, he's the only out-and-out recognised striker there who's fit and available. And as you say, you know, Joe Gormley has proven it season upon season. He scores goals, and you know, they're playing to his strengths again for me. It took Cliftonville a little bit of a while to get going this season. They were on a really bad run, and all of a sudden they've put a run of results together, which any team's capable of doing, the way the league is shaped up this year. Cliftonville have done it. They've got a little bit of a run going. Joe Gormley scoring goals, and it's got them up to second, and you know, you have to give them tremendous credit, because they lost some key players. They've had injuries, as other teams have had, but they've found a way to win games.
And who do you find? What do you think? How do you think the game's going to go on Sunday? Larne against Cliftonville. It's fascinating, I think.
Yeah, it's a good game. It's one that I'm looking forward to watching. You know, Larne again coming off the back of the European.
yeah.
You know, it's been difficult for them. I know they got through the last game against Coleraine. I worked at that game, and I thought on the day Larne looked laboured and lacklustre, and they just got over the line. Coleraine probably deserved a draw that day. So it's a big test again for Larne at home. Cliftonville coming off the back of a good win and on a good run of form. They'll fancy their chances, and it's an intriguing game.
Certainly is. Thanks, Paul. Tim, kind of similar, Larne against Cliftonville. We've spoken about Larne a lot. What about the Reds? Do you like them?
Yeah, they're flying. Paul touched on, it was Joe's birthday during the week, or he was 35. He's just a phenomenon, and he's been that way ever since. I think he scored 50 goals a season when he was playing amateur league football. And he's just a natural goal scorer. He's a born natural goal scorer. He knows what kind of runs to make. The players know what. And I would imagine in training they're just working on, let's just get the ball to Joe. Forget the ball 2 or 3 times to him inside the box. He'll score at least one of them. And it's becoming very, very simple. But for other teams, if they can keep Joe Gormley quiet and put someone on him and not give him a kick, then you might find that the Cliftonville might start to struggle to score. Depending on what team Larne put out in Europe. And the other side of it is, there's a lot of money still to be made in Europe. You get £133,000, I think it is, for a draw. You're getting maybe 300,000, 400,000 euros for a win. Do they go and chase that? Is the demand from maybe Kenny and the finance boys, listen, get at least a point. Can we get something out of this game to get extra revenue into the club? You just don't know. But I think Larne always seemed to struggle on the Sunday after a Thursday game away, which is understandable because they're travelling as well.
And it's all new ground to them as well. They're the first team that's tried this. Mark, we know Joe quite well, Joe Gormley, and he's not. He doesn't really like doing the interviews. He's shy in many respects, great fella. But from day one, from I've got to know him, he just shrugs his shoulders and says, "I just score goals. That's it's what I do." And it's what he's doing. Now, I do think, in fairness, that Cliftonville maybe have had to adapt a wee bit, to realise that Joe isn't going to be working outside the box. And it's not a one-man team by any stretch of the imagination, but it is impressive.
Yeah, and look, one of the highlights of the season for me, seeing that big grin on his face again. That was missing for a couple of years. He knew he was playing second fiddle a bit. And I'm sure that was tough for him. I'm sure he even considered maybe going and playing for the likes of Crumlin Star again. I wouldn't have been surprised. But to see him scoring goals, and it's not just tap-ins, it's not like, we all know Joe Gormley has the knack of knowing where to be at the right time. Last week, the chipped goal that he scored, it was absolutely sensational. And you can see the confidence running through him. But I agree with the lads. I think if someone can get onto him and you stop Joe getting that space, I'm slightly concerned where goals come from. Now, we know Rory Hale's always going to chip in as well. And Cliftonville have that on their side, but I don't think they've shown that enough. It seems to be a bit like Linfield, maybe at times relying on individual brilliance, or Cliftonville relying on Joe Gormley goals too much. Maybe time will tell that. But at the minute, look, he's flying. He scored a couple of hat-tricks in a month. I say they'll be going into this game full of confidence. And as the lads rightly said, Larne, it's not just the preparation for the European game and playing the European game. It's the travel. It's being in airport, it's being on the plane. It's all of that. And that's mentally tiring as well. They will get the bounce with Nathan Rooney coming in, and obviously he'll be in Slovenia with them, watching everything they do. But if I was Cliftonville, I'd be quietly confident.
It's not like Larne are resting the full 11 that are going to play against, Cliftonville. They're all travelling together. So, whether you're playing the 90 minutes or sitting on the bench or you're in the stand, they're all going together. So they're all travelling. So it's not like the other boys, you stay here and rest, and get prepared for the Larne game. It's not, yeah.
Now, talking of which, I'm going to be straight in here now. I am mindful that there was a big game last Friday night. Glentoran 1, Linfield 0. You're not happy with some of the guests. I didn't.
All three now.
I didn't weight it that way. Let me go straight in. Would Glentoran and Linfield take Joe Gormley?
I would take him if I was either.
Do you know what I mean?
Without a doubt.
The point I'm trying to make is last Friday night, Glentoran were great, absolutely smashing. Linfield were flat. Marcus Kane, absolutely immense in the captain's role, got the winner. Jamie Douglas sent off, we can talk about that. But I thought both attacks were a bit anemic.
Yeah, I would agree with you. Look, the Glens were the better side, there's no doubt about that. It was 11v11, they were certainly the better side. Probably unlucky not to get a penalty as well. But yeah, they lack that spark up front. There's no doubt about it. David Fisher, to me, or David Fisher, we have to call him. He's been one of the biggest disappointments of the season. There was so much talk about him last season, scoring goals, and obviously there was a lot of interest from Larne. Honestly, I don't know what's happened to him this season. It's not the same player that I can see. And look, Jay Donnelly's had his issues, not scoring goals for quite a while now. And Linfield are the same. Matthew Fitzpatrick does a lot of the ugly work, tireless working outside the box. But is he ever going to score 30 goals a season? I just don't see that ever happening. So I think both managers would love someone like Joe Gormley, who, no matter what happens, you stick the ball in the box, he scores goals. I don't see that from Linfield or Glentoran at the moment. But certainly Glentoran, yes, we all know what they do when they play Linfield. They've won the last 2 games in the league. Can they back it up? That's going to be the big question. Down the years, Glentoran have done this, and maybe people sometimes over-celebrate beating Linfield. As fun as it is, and rightly so, you have to celebrate it, but sometimes maybe people get a wee bit carried away.
Well, thanks for that, Mark.
I wonder who he's talking about there.
Yeah, but I mean, Glentoran, unbelievable. Like, they're up to 5th now in the league, with that great win. Can they build on it? They're playing Lockall this weekend. Can they build on it? Let's talk about the game itself. Glentoran were very, very impressive. The sending off, Tim, I don't think you thought it was a sending off.
No, the reason,
second yellow card.
Yeah, the reason being is that Jamie has dived pretty low, and James Douglas has his back, and we give instructions on, and we spoke to James at half time. Don't get involved, And to be fair, when he get booked early in the first half, he was jockeying people. He was running alongside Jimmy. He wasn't making the tackles. He's simply just trying to hook the ball on. He can't see who's there, so there's no malice. It's not like he's face on and he's then raised his foot. So we're talking maybe waist high. For me, that's not a high foot. And it didn't help with the 4 Linfield players surrounding the referee either. And obviously, then he produces a second yellow. I thought in hindsight he could have used a bit of common sense and thought, well, I've seen he has his back to go, and he's not even looking at the player and Jamie's thing. So I spoke to the 4th official, and I says, well, he's not even looking at him. He says, yeah, but he's dived in where his foot is, and it has to be a second yellow. And I then questioned, I says, well, will I start asking our players every time they see someone about to kick a ball to throw their heads at it? And he couldn't answer me. So for me, I thought it was very, very, very harsh. But listen, it turned out to be a great game. A great character from the boys. Just touching on Mark's point with Fisher and Fitzpatrick and Jay, in these games, and Paul will tell you, there's not really overly that many chances created because defences and things are. I felt the game was always going to be won by a corner or a set piece or a mistake or something like that. Both teams don't necessarily cut each other open and create, one-on-one chances against the keeper. There was very, very few of that. So. Probably sticking up for a little bit for David and Fitzpatrick and Jay on that one. But as I say, it was an intense game, and to play for 35 minutes with 10 men, sometimes 9, because with boys off the pitch at times and trying to get them back on, it was very, very impressive.
Thanks, Tim. Paul, we know where your allegiances lie, Glentoran hero, same as your friend. What did you make of the game and the sending off as well? But your assessment of the sending off, the game itself, and the implications for both Glentoran and Linfield.
Yeah, first of all, the sending off. I watched the game on television. I wasn't at the game, but so you got to see 4 or 5 replays of it straight away. I thought it was harsh. I thought, James Douglas, even his first booking was a soft one as well, but it's a booking. I can see why it's a booking. Then you're always sort of running that risk. But I thought it was a soft second one because I do agree. Jamie came from behind him. He couldn't see him. He's attempting to play the ball. And it's a little bit of common sense from the referee. It's one of those ones that if it goes against you, you're livid. If it's the other way, you can see why the Linfield players were calling for it. So it's a difficult one for the referee. But for me, and taking my Glentoran hat off, for me, bit of common sense, James Douglas probably should have stayed on the pitch. And I think he's a superb young player. For an 18-year-old, the composure that he shows, he's been a real find for Glentoran. The game itself, from a Glen's perspective, there wasn't many chances in the game, as Tim said. It's always going to be nip and tuck, forms out the window, the old cliche. But I was really impressed with Glentoran when they went down to 10 men, just how they rallied and dug in and stuck together. That was a big thing for me, how the players stuck together. Going back to your point about the strikers, You mentioned there's not many chances created for the likes of Fitzpatrick and Fisher in those games, but I have to agree with Mark that playing in two top teams, Linfield and Glentoran, for me, these guys have got to be scoring more goals. They have to be, because there's chances created week in, week out. So I agree with you. They've got to do better. Glentoran now, for me, they've beat the top of the table team in Linfield. They've celebrated it, but they've got to back it up now. You know, for me, you celebrate when you win trophies more so. So Glentoran have now got to back it up. They've proved they can do it. They've shown togetherness, which I love. That's what we loved in our teams. But they've now got to go and we talked about Cliftonville earlier, put that run of results together and get themselves right in the mix in this league championship race.
And just before you come in, probably I'm going to offer a little bit of balance maybe and be devil's advocate. I thought it was a sending off, and I'll tell you for why. Number one, bearing in mind he's a young player who I agree, I think he's a cracker for the future. He's already on a yellow card, so we should know.
But he doesn't know. He doesn't know the players there.
Well, here's
he's
the
simply
thing.
trying to hook a ball on the
here's
blind
the thing,
side.
Tim, here's the thing. Then it's dangerous. If he doesn't see the player coming through, it could be dangerous. Now, I kind of agree with you. Now, it wasn't his waist, by the way. It was further up than that.
It was his waist.
Jamie did
He's
nod.
quite a tall player.
Jamie did nod down indeed, but no, I thought it was a second bookable offence, I must say, and a yellow card. Just for balance, gentlemen, from the east, you know.
I actually think it was harsh as well. It was above the waist, but it was harsh. You know, I agree with you, the fact that he's already on a booking, but I agree as well. I think maybe the Linfield players getting around. Sometimes, you know, we talk a lot about referees. Is it sometimes the referees know the laws of the game, but don't always necessarily know the game? And I think that maybe played a little part in it. You know, you could see that he couldn't see the player, you couldn't see Jamie Mulgrew. So I think maybe if the referee knows a little bit more the way a player would, then I don't think he gets in the second yellow. Yeah, that's true, and it's difficult.
Make a decision. There's players around him. It's a difficult one for the
one thing I was going to say, and James Douglas was brilliant throughout the game. You know, while he was on the pitch, I thought he was super. I felt really, really sorry for him. Aaron Whiteman, you know, Tim and I were talking off-air. I thought Aaron Whiteman was brilliant. You know, he's had a difficult time at Glentoran recently with injuries and things like that. He plays in a number of positions, but the job he did in Joel Cooper, I thought was sensational. I think he's a great young player. Just hope he gets a run of games now, consistently in the one position as well, because I think he could be a smashing player for the Glens.
Well, while I have you here now, what about Linfield? You know, I mean, I hear people saying it's a poor Linfield team. We've heard that over the years, like, haven't we? Worst Linfield team ever to win the league, you know. They're 5 points clear with all the problems that they've had with injuries and missing players. They're not firing on all cylinders. They're still 5 points clear. What does that say about the rest of it?
Yeah, look, listen, Blue Men crack me up because they'll tell you it's the worst Linfield team in years. They'll also tell you the manager's a tube. So if it's the worst Linfield team in years, the manager must be brilliant for Linfield to be top of the table. Can't have it both ways. Look, the rest of the teams, the standard isn't as good as people say it is. I'm sorry if that offends people, but that's just the reality. You look at the league table and everyone's cutting each other's throats. The Linfield team isn't as good as maybe some of years gone by, while other teams maybe below Linfield last year or whatever have improved. I still think Linfield have gone down, and I think it's just a natural meeting in the middle. I think Linfield are going to have to sign players in January because, as we talked earlier on, I think Larne will do that. Larne will come back again when their European commitments are over. So Linfield have to improve if they're going to win the league this season. But right now, they're 5 points clear. I mean, it's hard to argue.
I feel a bit of sympathy for David Healy. I really have a lot of time for him, and I think he handles himself very, very well in the press and the stick that he gets. You know, they just put a brilliant performance in against Larne the previous week. You know, as everybody knows, big two games could go either way. You know, so they did have quite a lot of possession, and if Linfield had got a draw or potentially one, would people have turned around, because I think it's been made more of because we were down to 10 men. You know, but I still think Linfield were probably still composed on the ball at times and putting the balls in the box and to creating chances. But again, as Paul said, it was only for our players putting their bodies on the line that probably prevented Linfield from getting at least an equaliser. So, listen, as you say, any other manager in the league would bite your arm off to be 5 points clear at this stage in the league. So, I don't think Linfield fans have too much to worry about at the moment.
Okay, getting near the end of the show, Paul, but I want to talk about things in Mid-Ulster. Paddy McGuinness, the new manager at Glenavon, takes over from Stevie McDonald. Lost to Portadown in the Mid-Ulster derby last Saturday. Ports are going very well under Niall Curry. But the best of Mid-Ulster right now is Dungannon Swifts, who are still in third place, still confounding the critics. I'm looking here at the rest of the fixtures. Crusaders are against Dungannon Swifts at Seaview. Glenavon host Coleraine. Portadown are going to Windsor Park as well. So, how do you assess the Mid-Ulster teams?
Obviously, first of all, Paddy McLaughlin. He's made no secret that he was waiting on the right job coming up. The Glenavon job's come up. Listen, we all know it's a really good football club. Glenavon, lovely stadium. They've been down the last few years where they don't want to be. Stephen McDonald hasn't worked out for him. They've decided to go for Paddy, who's done a great job at Cliftonville. He's been to Derry City and had some time there as well. So it's going to take him time to get that team playing the way he wants to play, and you know he's probably going to need a couple of transfer windows as well. But long term, he could be a good fix for Glenavon. I think he's a good manager. He conducts himself well. His teams try to play good football. And, you know, it's a good appointment from Glenavon, along with Marty McCann and Coates gone in there as well. So they need to improve and quickly. You know, we will be given time, but they do need to improve quickly. Portadown are on a really good run. You know, they're competing in every game they're playing in. You know, they had a great result at the Oval a couple of weeks ago. They won the Mid-Ulster Derby. They're now going to Linfield, which is probably their biggest test, going to Windsor Park. So huge test for them this weekend, but they'll be full of confidence. And I think the sort of message from Niall Curry is let's go and let's have a go and let's play our game, and that's very refreshing to see that. Dungannon, we've talked about Dungannon before. You know, the job that Rodney McAree's doing there on a tight budget. You know, we talk about the money in the league these days, and even Portadown and Glenavon would have far better budgets than Dungannon. So what they're doing, always promoting youth, the style of football that Rodney plays, I think it's phenomenal that they've managed to stay up there for so long. But that's obviously comes with the fact that everyone's beating each other, and the league is the way it is this year. But for Dungannon to be up there, he's done a fantastic job, and as you say, they're the success story out of Mid-Ulster so far.
Thanks, Paul. Yes, Paddy's back in the game, Mid-Ulster. Not forgetting Loughgall of Mid-Ulster as well. They're struggling. Can Paddy do something similar to what Rodney's doing at Dungannon Swifts? Because that's what Glenavon will be looking for. Glenavon may have a better budget, but they're not, like, compared to some of the other teams, they don't have the same readies.
Well, we all know Paddy's style of play, right? So the fact that they've brought the pitch in at Glenavon, at Mourneview, and that has to stay like that the rest of the season, probably won't suit Paddy's style of play, if we're being brutally honest. He likes to play with wide men, likes to get balls into the box, and it's not conducive to that style of football at the minute, but I'm sure Paddy will make it work. You know, he's got good coaching staff behind him as well, and he's got a decent squad there as well. So by all accounts, they were decent, and probably had maybe the fair share of play against Portadown at the weekend, just couldn't finish them off. So I don't think he was too downhearted about it. He spoke very highly of his players. I think he'll be okay. I think he'll turn them around. He's got plenty of time on his side. And then Paul, speaking about Rodney, great coach, really good manager, and the fact that he has these players playing the way he has is a breath of fresh air. And then Niall Curry does what Niall Curry does. You know, Niall will just go and, you know, pluck players out of obscurity that no one's ever heard of. But can he get, 90 minutes with him? They've been fantastic. And another thing that they have in their locker too is that over the last number of weeks is they never know when to say die. You know, they pop up a last minute winners or last minute equalisers. So it's a very, very good trait to have.
Thanks, Tim. Tim's right about maybe Niall. He doesn't, not always unknowns, but certainly one who's a cracker is Ahu Obakan. And I think that Glenavon, Loughgall and Dungannon would probably all covet him a little bit. So looking at the fixtures, Crews against Dungannon Swifts, I think it's a tricky one for the Crews. Glenavon against Coleraine, Linfield Portadown, Loughgall Glentoran, and we've got Ballymena United against Carrick Rangers as well. Any of those jump out at you, Mark?
I think the Crews Dungannon is a great game. I didn't fancy Dungannon against Carrick last week, I have to say. Thought that would have been a really, really difficult game, but it shows you what Rodney's continuing to do. And likewise, actually, you know, I thought Crusaders might have more problems with Coleraine last week, so I think that's going to be an unbelievable game this week. I certainly couldn't call it because Dungannon just keeps surprising me to the fact that they shouldn't surprise me anymore because they're doing it on a regular basis. But I think that could be one of the games of the weekend.
Thanks, Mark. And that's about it, guys. So it just falls to me to say thank you, Mark, thank you, Tim, and thank you, Paul, as ever. That's it for now. We'll see you the next time on Football Express.